this little indent thing up top. So since last time, what's happened is that I have gone around and smoothed and added geometry, like as in increase the density of these meshes using the techniques of last lesson. And so you didn't have to watch me do this for the last 10 minutes. Okay, so now that we've got this aspect done, we can actually go in and start detailing stuff. And I would like to go in here also and start detailing. So I need to have my little background image again, which is gone because we closed the pane that had it in. So we just gotta bring in our little image again, Vortex Phase Blaster setup. Now when we hit Z, we can see it again. So I'm gonna turn off that pane again and go all the way back up here, switch to the damn standard brush. Actually, no, we're gonna do big changes right now. So we're gonna go around and we're gonna make sure that our shapes are accurate to our concept art. So what I want to do is I kind of want to pull this over a little bit, and I need to select this mesh and make sure it's in sculpt mode. And I'm just going to start pulling out these shapes. And I'm gonna check out what I'm doing over here. So smoothing. Whoa, that smooth was super powerful. What happened there? Just gonna bring it down a little bit, and just going over my shapes that I want to keep. Pull out, move back a little bit, and I notice that there's like a flat area here. I want to smooth that out. I'm just kind of going in and attacking my shape, my mesh, my sculpture, to get rid of the hard edges. Just going to keep doing that. And I want to make absolutely sure, for some reason, that fast navigator's on so we can quickly move. And also, I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. So hold on a second. Just going to kind of do a little bit of tweaking. So this is what it usually looks like when I am off camera, because I'm busy tweaking. But so here is the flatten brush. Flatten brush will actually let us kind of get rid of that little up and down. It basically what it does is it takes the normals and combines them together. And I'm just gonna massage it out. So what that is a artifact of smoothing near the center, the axis, center axis. So I'm just gonna keep doing this over here, smoothing this out, and get these bits in the right place. Let's see over here. Let's check this one out. Go in. And yeah, that's good for now. But what I really want to do is I want to alter these shapes up here because they're very kind of jagged, and I want them to be more squishy, rounder shapes. Squishy, rounder shapes, a technical term. Hold on. Let's smooth this out a little bit. And smooth this one a little bit too. So they're more pillow-like. And I think I just want to actually grab some of the points and move them out a little bit. You got to make sure to right click on the object that you want, kind of pull things out. Okay, so a little subtle work being done, but what I want to show you is now the broader strokes kind of stuff. I'm going to switch back to my awesome damn standard brush. I love it to pieces, to death, to everything. And I'm going to turn my Dynatopo back on, bring this down to a nice 2. And I am going to get specifically into a side view and shrink down my brush a little bit. I want to make this little metal part down here that's around my wooden pistol grip. And if I select the correct object, make sure that Dynatopo is on, I can cut into it and start to form this shape. And gotta make sure that's on. Oh geez, can't see anything. That is not where I wanted it at all. So I'm just undoing a little bit. Doing again. It's kind of cool that you can undo in this mode, even though it's like creating insane amounts of geometry at once. And also you can always get rid of it too by just changing changing the mesh creation from subdivide edges to collapse edges. We can just erase that, which is awesome. I love it. Greatest tool ever. All right, just gonna create this, and I'm gonna make sure that it goes around to this side, and same back here. I'm actually gonna add a little flange back here as well. Okay, now we have a little bit of ornamentation. I want to start smoothing it out. So smoothing does not actually affect Dynatopo, while everything else, a lot of other ones do. I'm just gonna add a little crease up here because I want to accentuate the difference between these two shapes. So a lot of work is involved in creating these objects, and I do like how there is a bit of almost like geometric quality to this. I'm just going to kind of outline a little bit, and I'm going to go in and use the polish brush a little bit later to flatten it out to create this more mechanical shape instead of the tree woody kind of shape that I'm going to be etching into here. And let's just look at our concept art again. Boop, boop. Let's actually look at it from this view so we can see. So there's little shapes in here. I'm going to start cutting in those as well. And yeah, this is the very fun part of this process, where you just get to be a little creative and cut in shapes and just kind of do what you want. So I'm just going to create these little repetitive shapes, and maybe I'll use a stamp brush to add in like flourishes and things that I can make in Illustrator or whatever, and use it to act as a guide for myself. Okay, and another thing I want is to create a sharper cut here. So Control and then cut in, because I want this gem to be kind of stuck into this piece of metal. I want there to be a very clear difference between this part and this part. All right, so next time we're going to continue onwards with detailing our mesh using various different techniques to generate detail. So, fun fact before we get started, in regards to dynamic topology, what happens when we have vertex data, like a UV map or weight painting or something like that? When we go and enable Dynatopo, what happens is it obliterates it. It's just gone. It basically wipes it out. So that's why we're working this way. Specifically with this weapon, we're going to be creating the high poly geometry, and then we're going to be baking it onto our lower resolution model, which is still here, still alive. Hey, how's it going? And what's going to happen then is that we're going to create our UV maps and then bring that information down to it, and then we're going to also use the painting tools on this mesh instead of this insane high polygon mesh. And that is to actually allow us to, work on this model in close to real time. Also without the caveats of dynamic topo. So what I want to teach you now is the aspect of masking. So first things first, I'm going to select this mesh, and we're going to go all the way to our brush. Going to increase the strength a little bit. And what I want to show you is masking. So masking is like a little sub mode of sculpt mode. So if you hit M, it'll actually switch your tool up here to the masking tool, and you can click and drag and kind of, draw your mask out. What you're noticing is that there's no update happening here. So what you have to do is go over to the modifiers tab, and as you can see under the mirror object, because we can see it, hide mask and optimize display is disabled. So we have to click on this eye, and now we can see our mask again. So with that, now what we can do is, I'm just going to make sure that all that's on. We can hit M to toggle on and off mask mode, and also Control I to invert the mask, Alt M to clear the mask. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take my little metal bit down here and mask that off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, actually what I want to do first is I want to add a little subdivision surface to here and apply it, because I want to increase the amount of geometry that we've got. So basically doubled it, and now I'm going to start masking. So you can actually hit Shift F to increase the strength of the masking tool, so you can just kind of go really hard at it. And I'm just going to trace this area. And I'm going to just get these parts kind of haphazardly, because it doesn't matter right now. Right now what I'm doing is I'm going to be showing you the tool and then later on using it, because right now I have more work that I would like to do on this model. Just basic nitpicky stuff, and hold down Control to kind of, you can delete your mask with that brush, so you can do a controlled removal. And I really like this tool. It's fantastic. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to create a textured brush. So I'm going to go to the brush again, and I'm going to add a new brush, and that is going to be textured brush. Texture brush. And what I'm going to do now is explain to you this fantastic tool. So we have a brush, and there's a texture option. And if we click on this, if we have any textures loaded, it's going to look for those and assign them. So I'm going to hit Add New Texture, because we're going to be loading our own texture. And so this is a little cloud map, and we're going to go over to our textures. Notice here, if for some reason you don't see this preview here, you're either going to be on world or material mode, and this final mode over here is brushes and other data mode. And we just want to go type image or movie, open, referenced files, wood H. H is for height map. So it's only grayscale and goes up and down. And I'm going to check here, see if there's any other things we can use. Yeah, no, this is fine. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is explain to you a little bit more about how this tool works. So we have brush mapping, which is basically how it gets the information from the texture map to the 3D space. So 3D will change it to a 3D space. Stencil will actually show up this big fancy image plane over here, and area plane is based off of this plane of the Blender Euler space. And I'm just going to click and drag, and notice how it's horizontal based on where it is. So I'm actually going to lower the strength of this brush because I don't want it to be so harsh, and I'm just going to draw it out, and it's just kind of mapping over the area that I want, and it's not mapping over this because we masked that off. And notice how it's also all aligned. Like when I took off my click to start painting over here, it's still aligned with the same image over there. But if we chose view plane, what we can do is we can actually notice that we can change that. So it's based on the viewport, not the 3D space. And I'm going to go back to area because that's what I want. And I'm going to go to stroke. So I'm going to explain to you what these tools do. So space is basically drawing our little, just the standard mode. Airbrush will increase over time. It'll keep applying the paint effect. Anchored is really kind of cool because it lets you click and drag and rotate, which is awesome. So we can actually change the direction of our wood grain. So if we want to have it change as we go down to the bottom, we can do that. We can do drag dot, which basically acts as a stamp, like in ZBrush, and we can just kind of like bring these over here. So we can get our detail from textures, and we can actually smooth it out a little bit. That's a way too powerful smooth. I'm going to go back to smooth, and I'm going to knock that down a bit. And you can even have these textures in basically any brush, including grab and such like that. And also to clear my mask, I can hit Control M or Alt M. Alt M, very important. Remember your hotkeys. And the last thing I want to show you in this lesson is the matte cap. So if anyone here is familiar with ZBrush, click on matte cap, and this is in the display and numerics panel under shading. And what's cool is that we can change it. So we actually have the red wax like in ZBrush. I believe this renders slightly faster because it's not actually using lights. It's using this matte cap material to render. So it's fast. It looks a lot like ZBrush, and you can see all the nooks and crannies and details. So I'm a big fan of it when I'm sculpting. So we're going to be switching from basically effectively mesh modeling to sculpting, and there's a couple things we should have done before switching over, but I will tell you how to fix the problems that we've caused. Okay, so if we hit tab and go into edit mode, kind of zoom in over here, we notice that our mesh has tiny teeny holes. So the way to fix it is hold down Alt, right click, and now we should have this whole edge loop selected. Now let's just drag it over in this direction. Hooray! That should have fixed our problem. Okay, to check, all we have to do is go over to our modifiers panel, hit apply, and now you remember those bumps and weird stuff that we had before? If we go into sculpt mode, because we've got symmetry on, I'm going to check to make sure we've got symmetry. All right, we've got symmetry. Also, it's going to be running a little bit faster too because it's going to be using its own mirror modifier rather than the edit mode mirror modifier. But look, we can actually get rid of those little bits without having to do any weird kind of flatten, etc. mode kind of stuff. So we can just shift and wipe them out. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be changing up the volume a little bit. I'm going to actually open up my tool panel again because I like working this way. Keep in mind I'm going to be using a Wacom tablet for most of this in order to sculpt it really easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the, where are you, clay strips brush. I'm going to go over to this area, hold on, this area, and I'm going to create that little indent shape that I wanted for where the round part of the handle connects with the more flat area. So I'm just going to hit Control and kind of cut in, and I'm going to shrink it down, Control, cut in, and there's no, I'm not working with Dynotopo or anything fancy like that. So now I've got this kind of shape. And we're going to flatten this over here. And to do that, we're actually going to use this fancy brush called Flatten. So I'm just kind of dragging it in. Going to smooth because why not? I do a lot of work where I just kind of like affect an area and smooth a lot. So holding down Shift to smooth it. and drag that in, hold down Shift to smooth. Okay, so we're getting a more flattened profile there. And just one more big stroke, and Shift to smooth. So now I'm going to work on this little indent here because I want that to be pronounced so that when you look at it, you see it a little bit better than you would normally. So I'm just going to kind of go in and out a little bit over here. Okay, so now we've got that little aspect that I wanted. I'm going to go out a little bit and move over to the front. So, like I said before, my favorite brush of all time is the damn standard. And what I'm going to do is look at my concept art and then start adding in the shapes that I wanted. So I want this part to be the little lower bit. I'm just going to draw out a lip, and then I'm going to hit Control and drag that in. So we have a little tighter space. And I'm just going to go all the way down. And I'm going to actually try to do this a little bit more carefully. Even though I do not have much time, I want this to look good. All right, come on. Control, drag. And we're going to just connect it here. And I'd like to actually add a little connecty bit right there, but that will come a little bit later. And I'll just smooth out the edges over here so it's a little bit less harsh. I just smooth. And I also would like to kind of move this over. I want to create a little cut in there as well, like in our concept art. So I'm going to use my clay strips, and I am going to aggressively attack that area. Or I'm just going to cut it in, cut. Increase the strength, increase the size, increase the strength. Cut. Okay. Yeah, that's the notch that I wanted. And now I'm gonna do a damn standard, shrink that, and kind of go there and there to create a little crease, and then pinch, increase the size a little bit, and just kind of shrink it so it's very tight. That's what we want. Okay, so I'm going to just run the pinch along this as well. So I want to tighten up this crease and keep doing that. Okay, so I've got my volume where I want it. I actually want to reinforce the graphics on the pommel. So I'm not actually just going to smooth it out and kind of obliterate this aspect. And I'm going to come back in and create detail again. Okay. Because I want to change up the details a little bit. I want to make it a little bit more precise. And I'm going to say it's okay to have a little bit of variation because, I mean, even though this is a sci-fi weapon, it also has aspects of old, like where it would be possibly hammered by a blacksmith or something. So I would like to show that a little bit so it's not 100% super accurate. I take my brush and just kind of create these edges that I want. And just draw this over. And let's cut in as well. So Control to cut. And actually, let's do this kind of design. I'm gonna have a little overlap, and then these kinds of little flourishes going in. And I'm gonna have a cut. Actually, no. I'm gonna have it follow this design a little bit too high. Okay, and the third one down here, completing that set. It's almost like a wave. And I'm just gonna add some little bits of detail to that to make it kind of look like it's deeper. And that's on both sides. And I want to actually add a flourish right here. So this is it's going to be a pretty weapon, but we're also going to bludgeon people with this area specifically, which is kind of great. I mean, I like hitting people with pretty things. I mean, I'm sure the first bar fight was in a Victorian smoking lounge of some kind. And let's draw this over here. Let's draw this down here and cut in to accentuate it. And do the same up here. And I just want to do a couple more. Actually, I'm just gonna continue this whole embellishment aspect here. No, that looks dumb. Okay. Yes, this is where I want it for now, and I'm very close to time. So in the next episode of Digital Tutors, I will be continuing to detail this a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next part, which will probably be the little shield over the vortex of the vortex phase blaster. All right. All right. See you next time. Happy blending. The top of our mesh. All right. So the quickest way to get this all worked up is to actually just work the geometry. So I want to make this kind of more geometric and hard surface than this smooth area up here. So I'm just going to kind of use the layer. Oh, that was not what I wanted. So I'm going to use a low power layer brush to just kind of build up these shapes a little bit to make them more geometric and in line with the other aspects of this. So I'm just going to kind of slowly build this up and smooth. And lots of flatten, because we're going to make this a flatter object. Switch to dam standard. I'm going to also make cuts here so that everything kind of works together. So I'm going to force the shape through many means. And that is how you bludgeon your sculpture to death in a way that will force these shapes into existence. And I'm gonna create this, make the socket a little bit better as well. So kind of smooth that out. Smooth, and just keep working the shapes. That is way too far out. Okay, and we can use the crease brush to kind of... The crease brush is kind of like the dam standard, except it's got a pinch on it as well. So it kind of pulls things in. It's like a weird black hole. And I'm gonna pull this over here. Now pinch to sharpen up the edges. Gonna just force this shape. And I think what I'm gonna do is actually continue this off camera so that you don't watch me do this for the next half an hour. But if you really want me to, I can totally make another video on just sculpting primitives from mush and the clay-like surface. It's very much like building them with clay. You just gotta kind of mash things around until you get it. And smooth. So I'm going to say that that's good enough for now because it's small and you can see it from a distance and it looks kind of okay. Okay, so the next part I'd like to move to is up here, the shield, or at least what I'm calling the shield. So what I want to do with this is kind of like a juxtaposition between this techie bit and all this organic stuff over here. So this is going to be a like a ridged or almost like a carapace kind of object, like a arthropod or insect. Okay, insect, not insect. Okay, I'm going to move it to another layer so we can work on it, because right now we have the same syndrome that we had with the other one. And what I'm first going to do is I'm going to check my model, make sure that there's no holes before applying my mirror modifier. So it looks watertight, that's good. I'm going to apply it, and now I'm going to check it. So I'm going to switch to sculpt mode, and I'm just going to check it by holding down shift and kind of running my mouse over the problem areas that we identified. And yeah, it looks good. So let's move it back to layer 1, and we can't move it in this mode because if you hit M, you go into masking. Let's go to object mode, move it back to layer 1. We're back on layer 1, and let's keep sculpting. So what I want to do now is I'm gonna create the ridges that I wanted to, basically like following up with the idea of the heat sink, but extended off into this aspect. So it's really just kind of mirroring it. And the fancy word for that is juxtaposition. So I'm going to enable dynamic topo so it generates the geometry I need for me, and I'm just gonna basically do a simple thing, and I want to keep the number 3, 1, 2, 3, mainly because it's a magic number. That's pretty cool, right? And it works out pretty well. Okay, so 1, 2, and then 3. Here's our third ridge. I'm gonna accentuate this a little bit. Gonna shrink down. Actually, I'm gonna zoom in, give it some more detail. All right, and I'm gonna do the same up here. Just gonna add a little bit more detail. Add a little bit more detail, and I'm gonna cut in on the back. So Control to cut into this shape. So now it's kind of like a ridge. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to make sure that that is a defined ridge because I really want this to pop and mimic this area. So I'm also going to sharpen up this area a little bit because I like having pronounced and visible edges, because that's what's going to show up on your mesh. That's like from far away you'll be able to see like the silhouette coming out, and like mimicking all this is fantastic. Okay, so we got those ridges, and so say we're in a sci-fi game, we can have the gun facing this direction and we can see all these details. Yeah. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see the pommel because that's going to be in your hand the entire time. But yeah, we're getting closer to being done with the sculptural aspect. We will be adding more details. And for the next lesson, we're going to go in and tackle these little bits here and potentially